start right at the very beginning. I was born in 1985 into a family that was not religious at all. My father was an engineer and my mother was a volunteer at a charity shop. I have an older brother who is also a non-believer. And I had a worldly standard, brilliant upbringing. I was never hungry, I was not abused, there was no loss, there was no major tragedies or turmoils that I was escaping from or trying to subdue. I was just a sinner who had no fear or no knowledge of God and loved sin. I had in, let me try and find the words, the belief that I had on life and eternity was sort of founded in Star Wars and this Eastern mythological of everyone has good and bad in them and it's just what you do with it. So from very young, that was sort of my thought train of force. So I started young. My rebellion started very young. I started off as a very fortunate thinker in school. I was good at my academics. I was teacher's pet from very young. And I quickly learned how to use that as a manipulating tool to get freedom from my mom and dad. I would often lie to them to get what I wanted. And by the time I was 10, a lot of my friends were much older than me, so I started drinking, smoking from about 10 years of age. And that just spiraled once I got into high school. My brother was in a punk band, so they lost the bassist. I was invited to join, and because of the trusting relationship, it's my older brother, he'll be looking after him, it'll be fine. I was able to drink pretty much every night during high school. So my weeks would consist of band practice, school band practice, and then drinking till 12 o'clock. Going to school, band practice, drinking till 12 o'clock. Weekends would be binge drinking and partying all weekend. And that was my life up and right through high school. Then I started working. Once I started making my own money, then it was easier to afford more expensive drugs that I couldn't afford when I was in high school. So I gravitated towards cocaine and hallucinogenics. And for, let's say, like 3 years, I was just lost, consumed cocaine at work just to survive, just to get through the day. And then once the bell rang for home time, I was re-energized. I'd get home, 15-minute shower, straight out to the pub, back at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was how I lived for about 3 years. All the while, just continually lying. I was a very good drunk, so you wouldn't be able to tell if I was drunk. Well, my parents couldn't. I was good enough to deceive them for all those years. And so that's where I was. And then about 2 weeks after my 21st birthday, I woke up, I lost control of my bladder. I was late for work for the 100th time. And I was just in such a low. I just hated what I was becoming. And I said, I'm going to change myself. I'm going to check myself into Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to come clean. I'm going to do all of this. I'm going to I did. I checked myself in. I didn't go to any of the meetings. I just was given a prescription of anti-booze, and I convinced myself if I drink on this stuff, I'm going to die. But I was determined not to change my lifestyle. I still loved being on stage. I still loved being a rock star. I still loved that whole way of life. But I was just going to not drink. So I got away with it for about a year. And it was just a nice little setup for an even bigger fall. You know, the devil was just withdrawing and dropping little seeds of pride. I'm so proud of you, my boy. You've done well. You've really turned things around. Look at you. You're not drinking. You're getting healthy. You're getting fit. And I was, yeah. I'm doing really well. I am doing really well. I've done a good thing. I've turned everything around. Just look at me now. Look at me now. To the point where I was looking down on my friends who were still drinking, still living their party lifestyle. And I sort of put myself up on this pedestal above them. And the thoughts started coming. Well, you can't be so serious all the time. Why don't you just go and ask Jimmy for a joint and just have a puff, you know? Just one puff. It's New Year's, you'll be fine. And that was it. That one puff turned into 2 puffs, turned into 3 puffs, turned into a bag, turned into some hallucinogenics, turned into cocaine. And it was just, in Luke, where he says once you clean the house and the spirit goes wandering and he comes back and he finds the place clean, you end up a lot worse off than before. And I was probably doing quadruple the amount of drugs that I was doing before that, but I wasn't drinking, so it was fine. It was justifiable in my head. And one day, after taking a hallucinogenic, I had a bad trip. I can only describe what I physically felt, but it felt like there was something, like a chain, locking around my heart. And I thought, something's not right. I've done a lot of drugs before in my life, but this hasn't happened to me before. What's going on? And I had a hallucination, dream, whatever it was, that I was in this blackness. There was something coming for me, demonic is what I felt. I felt like it was going to take me. And as soon as I thought, God, help me, stop, I woke up. And I thought, okay, this must be really strong drugs. I'm just going to ignore this. 2 weeks, every night, I was up, same time, 3:15 in the morning, just terrified. Like something was there. Something was coming for me. And I was working away. Another night, another experience, just overwhelming terror and uncomfortable in the hotel. And I can't remember what I read in the Bible, but I just read the Bible until I could fall asleep. And I woke up the next day, and I could feel my conscience. I could see the choice. And the choice was, do I go to a concert that I've been waiting for, one of my most favorite metal bands, one of the most satanic bands in the world at the time, or do I put my trust in this God that I don't really know anything about, but who has come to help me on these 2 occasions that I've asked? So I obviously went to the satanic metal band, and I'll go through these details as quick as I can because they're completely irrelevant, but just to sort of to show how it impacted me. I got to my brother's house. A frog jumped into the kitchen. On our way out, a frog jumped across my foot. We went to the show, and it was a place. That's where I lived. I lived in this environment, drugs, loud music, heavy metal music, blaspheming, all of it. That was where I lived. That was my home. And no came out. He says, now we're going to pray to my God. Start swinging the third around like it was a Catholic service, and I was just like, I just don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. So got home, as we're coming into the house, another frog. And I was just thinking, 3 frogs, that's a strange thing. That's a strange thing. 2 o'clock in that morning, up again, immense terror. I just felt like I was being crushed. I don't know what was going on. Panic, panic, panic. And all I could think in my head was 3 frogs in the Bible. 3 frogs in the Bible. What's going on? So, 3 frogs in the Bible. Revelation 16. And out of the beast now 3 unclean spirits like frogs, and my heart just broke. Just broke. Because I realized I was at war with the Holy God. And my whole life was in rebellion to him. And I broke down. I went down to the pool at my brother's house and I just repented. I just cried out. I said, Lord, I'm sorry. I don't know what you want me to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know why you're here or why you are pressing me. And that time I didn't realize. At that time I thought the worst thing about me was my addiction. And I don't think that was the moment I was saved. I don't think I had an understanding of what the gospel was at that time. But I think that was the stepping stone. I understood that God is moving and there's nothing I can do to stop. There's nowhere I can hide. There's nowhere I can run. But I couldn't understand the love. I couldn't understand why. Why, when someone who was as rebellious as me, there was a time, if you'd heard me speak, or if you'd come to me and said that you're a Christian, I would have mocked you, I would have persecuted them. The blasphemy that used to come out of my mouth, it makes me cringe. Every second word was crash and rude, and just revolting, just revolting. And yet, as soon as I cried out for help, he reached down and he helped me. You know, he says, come to me, I'll give you rest. The weight that he lifted off my shoulders, the guilt, the anger, the frustration that he just lifted off my shoulders in that moment, I can't explain. I can't explain. Only God can carry that kind of weight. Only God can carry, only Jesus can take that. He's the only one that can give you rest. Then I had to go and confess that I was a Christian to my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, but was also in that same lifestyle. And we're married, we have 2 beautiful children. We're free from the addictions that once enslaved us. Does God still have a lot of work to do? Oh, plenty. Like I said, the addictions is only a symptom of a heart that doesn't fear God, and that just is so full of pride and so eager to satisfy sin. But the Lord is faithful. Looking back, you can just see His hand, His grace, His mercy in all of these situations. Though they seem dark, they served a purpose. He shone His light there. Now I can look back and say, what an amazing God. What an amazing God that reaches down into the darkest pits of depravity, filth, and turns things off, puts light on, and sets people free. I can't explain it to you what that feels like. If I could encourage you, don't ever give up hope. I really believe that someone was praying, whether it was my mom or someone must have been praying for me, and I'm an answered prayer for somebody, because I wasn't looking for God. I had no desire for God. I hated God. The filth that was in my mind, my complete rebellion to Him, wasn't something that turned Him away. You know, He didn't recant. He didn't leave me to burn and to die in that life. He pulled me out gently. Gently, come out. Just come. And yeah, that's my story. I hope that encourages you and helps you to see just how wonderful and glorious He is. Patient, kind, long-suffering, forbearing, forgiving. Is in times like this, right, He can work miraculously, miraculously. That anyone is saved is miraculous, but I really hope that you'll be encouraged, and that He will be glorified, and that He will use that to further glorify His kingdom and further encourage. Yeah, so that's the story. So we'll go into our last hymn.